Today's discussion will be presented in 3 sections, since we are recording it for a radio broadcast on Federal News Radio 1500 AM. You're welcome to post questions and comments during the session, and we'll try to answer them online. I'd like to introduce our moderator, Gigi Shum, host of Women in Washington on Federal News Radio 1500 AM and federalnewsradio.com.
Welcome and thanks for joining us today. My guests are Marty Eckert, Chief Information Security Officer for the Social Security Administration, Betsy Kulik, Deputy Program Manager for the CDM program at the Department of Homeland Security, and Marcy Nagel, Principal at Booz Allen Hamilton. Welcome, ladies. Marty, I'm going to start with you with a very general question. What are the top cyber threats that Social Security is facing today, and how do you expect those cyber threats to change or evolve over the next couple of years?
Thank you, Gigi. So as the Social Security Administration, as you know, we have lots of personally identifiable information for millions of Americans. And we take that responsibility to protect that very seriously. But obviously the biggest threat for us, especially given what you hear in the news today about breaches, is the threat of a compromise of that personally identifiable, that sensitive information. To combat that, we have a comprehensive, integrated, holistic, robust cybersecurity program. Another threat to us, though, is older software that we use in our program. Our program has been around for a long time. I think it's 80 years now. And so over the years, while we were early adopters of technology, originally you may have heard stories of how we made use of the first computers. Over years, some of that software has gotten old. And so there's vulnerability in that legacy IT, if you will. Current technology, cyber technologies, cyber tools are not built to protect those legacy platforms. So another challenge for us is building out our program to protect those legacy systems, but as well as migrating those legacy systems to more modern platforms. How those threats will change. The bad actors in terms of nation state, criminal actors, hacktivists, those types of threats will continue. However, the techniques that they use will continue to change. They'll continue to modify their techniques. So as we build defenses and layers of defense into our program, they're constantly building something new and innovative for us to respond and react to. So our programs will also evolve to meet those new threats. But we see that continued evolution and maturation of that threat environment.
So one of the programs that was put in place to help agencies like Social Security is the CDM program, the Continuous Diagnostics and Monitoring Program, which then became Continuous Diagnostics and Mitigation, right? And so, Betsy, you've been involved in that program from the start. Can you talk to us a little bit about how it's changed over the years? I know that in the early years there were a lot of challenges, as there are with any new program, but both technical challenges and challenges surrounding acquisition. Can you tell us a little bit about the program, but even more than that, how you've now made some adjustments over the years from the things that you've learned as we are now moving into phase 3 of that program?
Sure. Well, first of all, the CDM program was trying to galvanize and help agencies do and meet their obligations that had dated back from FSMA 2002. So we were trying to leverage what was already done, but agencies were struggling with funding and resources in order to get some of those basic fundamental cyber hygiene capabilities on the ground. So the program did some pretty innovative things. We combined agency requirements, and we combined agencies in order to get a certain standardized approach toward ISCM, Information Security Continuous Monitoring, to help people talk on the same language and to understand the same picture, try to create that as an enterprise approach across even complicated federated agencies. That proved to be very challenging because, as we know, agencies are very complex. They have different missions, and those were some of the things that were holding them back from being able to conduct that cyber hygiene. So we combined the agencies. We've had varying degrees of success. On the positive side, we've gotten tools for the cyber hygiene part of CDM out to all the CFO Act agencies. They're almost all of them on the point where they're completing full deployment. They're going to have dashboards that will show them the picture of what's going on in their agencies. But that's not to say that they had challenges in terms of trying to make CDM real for them for within their own agencies. Marty's agency is a really good one because they were really advanced for the reasons that she just explained. So they really knew what they needed, and they were with a group of agencies that are different levels of maturity. So we had to accommodate that in our next set of task orders. And the other problem we had is we had 3-year periods of performance, which is really, I know the push is for CDM and for agencies to do this fast, but 3 years is fast time in contracting terminology. So our next set of task orders is going to be for a longer period of time. We are not going to march into agencies, work with them, and deploy across the board like we did with the foundation, the cyber hygiene, hardware asset management, software asset management, configuration, vulnerability. We're going to be targeting, working closely with the agencies, looking at the full capabilities of phase 3, which is what's happening on the network, and finding out what they need. Marty's agency may need more encryption support, for example, so that's working with them, that's what they would get. They may not need, I'm just making this up, cloud stuff, for example, or that may be a less of a priority. So we will be targeting what agencies need instead of trying to apply the same thing across the board. And I think those are going to be 2 really big changes.
Yeah, absolutely. So Marcy, I know that in your role at Booz Allen, you've been involved with CDM for a few years now too, and you've had the opportunity to see several different agencies. What sort of innovation have you seen some agencies take with regard to CDM?
Well, first, I'd like to say that I have seen tremendous progress with the phase 1 deployments across the board, in that in less than the last 2 years, we've seen a tremendous decrease in just shadow IT. And through the deployment of hardware asset management and software asset management, we have, together in partnership with DHS and the agencies, have brought visibility into 82% more technology assets, at least within the 13 agencies that Booz Allen is supporting, which is quite tremendous.
Now, when you talk about shadow IT, it's
Yes.
really, you can't protect what you don't know
That's
about, right?
absolutely
And
right.
so when you talk about shadow IT, what you're talking about is agencies that had systems on their networks that they didn't even know existed, right?
That's absolutely right.
So how does that happen?
So how does the shadow IT happen? It's without that common set of capabilities that the CDM program is bringing to the agencies, which is first that network hygiene, the visibility into all of your assets. And when we came in and kicked off the CDM program within each of the agencies, they had an idea in their mind how many assets they had, and they reported that at the start of the program. Well, after we've conducted those as-is assessments and deployed the hardware asset management, software asset management capabilities, we were able to uncover significantly more assets that were previously just unreported. But now, bringing them into the visibility, we can now put all of the other capabilities or build the additional CDM capabilities on top of those assets, whereas had we missed that step or went around it, you would have deployed capabilities perhaps on just a sliver of the entire enterprise, which certainly doesn't add the value that we're looking to achieve.
Can I add something?
Sure, absolutely.
You asked about shadow IT, and I think how that happens is because people are mission driven. Somebody says we need to get something done, they get it done, and they follow up later. What's happened with the 21st century in cyber is you have to keep those 2 combined. Yeah. You cannot have mission without cybersecurity. And it's hard for us we understand that, but to operationalize that is really a challenge, and I'm sure Marty has long stories about that.
Marty, do you have some stories for us? Did you have experience when you implemented CDM that you found some systems or parts of networks that you didn't know you had?
So I wouldn't say necessarily that we found a network or a system that we didn't know we have, but what we have done over the past several years is work closely with our operations components who, as Betsy described, with the democratization of IT and how much easier it is now to build a software application, we have actually embraced our operational components who want to do that mission work and who want to build that software, and they can now. So we have worked hard with them to envelop them and bring them into our enterprise security program, and we've worked with them to establish a common risk framework for them in building those applications. And we also work to assess and authorize those applications. So we've really tried to bring them into our enterprise security program to still embrace and address that need, though, that folks closest to the customer can sometimes build a software solution that works best for them.
So, you know, the security teams often get the reputation of being the people that say no all the time. Sounds like you've done some work to try to shift that from being the team that says no to being the team that says maybe yes, but this is how you need to do it. How did that shift occur, and was there a cultural aspect to it that you had to work through?
There is a cultural aspect to it. And what we say, what we think our mission is to enable the business, right? So there is, when we talk about that, especially when we talk about, we have a lot of public-facing applications as well for our clients. And it's always this balance between convenience and security. But if you think about it, these are two closely held values by our customers, our clients, our beneficiaries at Social Security. They want convenience, they want it to be easy to use, but they also want us to protect their information. And so they hold both of those values closely, and it's up to us to find that, to be able to apply both of those values and bake security into any of our applications.
So, Marcy, I'm going to come back to you. You have a lot of experience with CDM with the civilian agencies. Sometimes there's the thought that the civilian agencies are not as far along as DoD, or they haven't taken cybersecurity as seriously for as long. What's your perspective on that? Where do you think the civilian agencies are in their maturity level?
Well, I would say right now we're supporting 13 of those civilian agencies, and there really is a strong desire to get security right and lay the groundwork. And I would say that is consistently true for each of the civilian agencies we're supporting. And they are diving in. They just need the assistance to get there. And what I think is great about the CDM program is that they are providing, through DHS, providing that roadmap, if you will, a logical sequence of capability rollout so that each of the civilian agencies can achieve that same level of maturity, which quite frankly is a no-fail mission. We have to get there. And then once we're able to build that common capability across, then we can work towards that automation of cyber operations to help with some of the workforce limitations that we have, the automation of incident response, minimizing the time to detect, respond, mitigate, and then eventually we'll get to a position where we can achieve that ongoing assessment and authorization where there's no more three-ring binders, if you will, CNA processes. And I honestly feel with the CISOs that I have the opportunity to work with and the CIOs that I speak with, they are committed to that mission, and they are grateful for the opportunity to work with DHS and what DHS is bringing to the table and providing them the cybersecurity tools as well as the services to design, plan, and integrate that within their environments.
Can I just hop on that
Absolutely.
one?
In fact, I was going to ask if you had a perspective on that as well.
I really want to go back to the gap between the operational people and the security people. And again, a shining example of where it works and why they are so far ahead. It's hard for the program to make that happen. The dashboard, I think, is going to be an instigator because it's going to have information that operators are going to want, and it's going up in the CISO offices for the most part. So we're forcing communications that have not happened before, and as a program, we can't mandate that kind of change. So we really look to thought leaders like SSA to help bring the rest of the people or the rest of the boats up to the right level, because that's what we're trying to do, is to get everybody to understand the really good lessons that they could get from SSA, for example, about how to help people talk, how to get the CIO to be able to talk to the CFO and the CXO and all the rest of them. Again, this is what FITARA is trying to do, FISMA 2002. I think you see it in the executive order, 13800. Probably the IT modernization report. The messages we're getting from the White House are all hold people accountable and make things happen. You can't just have window dressing. You have to actually work together to get it to happen. But that's hard for the program to do.
I'll add one thing to that, as what we've seen as we're demonstrating the full integrated capability within some of the agencies, and we're bringing that visibility into the number of vulnerabilities, for example, I've seen really in real quick action, the leaders take a response and start to direct their resources to quickly go in and aim to mitigate those vulnerabilities or take in these new assets that they previously weren't identified as a result of this new visibility. And I've seen it time and time again.
So it sounds like you're saying, Marcy, that really the first step in getting the two groups together and to kind of do that mind meld that Betsy was talking about is just to give them the visibility that they need to. There may be things going on in their environment that they had no idea were going on, and once they're made aware of it, they realize that action is necessary.
That's absolutely correct.
I'm your moderator, Gigi Shum, on the panel discussion of Women of Washington, Cybersecurity in the Government, sponsored by Booz Allen Hamilton on Federal News Radio 1500 and federalnewsradio.com.